Coming up on this episode of the METS podcast, the New York Mets take the series against the Chicago Cubs with a 6-2 victory today on Mother's Day. We're going to also talk about the first quarter season grades and what we think we're going to see for the remainder of the season from the New York Mets. That and a lot more coming up. Let's get into it. Roll the music. Welcome to Mike's Mets podcast. I'm your host, Mike Peixoto. Let's get it right into it. The New York Mets would silence any doubters after a tough loss on Saturday night. The New York Mets made up for it with a pretty decisive 6-2 victory over the Chicago Cubs today on Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day to everybody. Hope everyone had a wonderful time seeing their mom. I certainly did. Happy Mother's Day, Mom. My mom really tries, and I've said this before, she really tries when I'm trying to explain baseball, and for her part, I have to really give her credit. She understands a lot of it, and she tries to learn as much as she can. At the very least, in order to make it seem like she knows something to my dad. So I give her a lot of credit for that, and I know that's not it's not her first love, baseball or the Mets, but because all the men in her family love it so much, she really makes an effort. So thank you very much, Mom. Happy Mother's Day again. So getting into the game today, this was presented as a pitcher's duel for the majority of it, but by the end of it, the Mets would make it clear that they swing the biggest bats in town, and the Chicago Cubs have the best offense in baseball. No one disputes that. The Cubs have a formidable offense. They are the highest scoring offense in the league. They present with a ton of great players, Pete Armstrong, Michael Busch, Seiya Suzuki, the list goes on. They have a great offense, a pitching staff that's pretty solid, a bullpen that's having some trouble right now, but they're a really good team, and there's a reason why they're in first place. And this was a tough series, and one that really made a statement, because there are naysayers that are out there that are going to look at the Mets' record and their record against what has primarily been a lot of losing teams that are not particularly talented. You can look at their series against like the Oakland Athletics or the Washington Nationals. Take your pick. The Mets have had a pretty easy schedule for the most part in April. In May, it's been a little bit tougher, and this was certainly their biggest test, I think, thus far this season, taking on a legitimate contender, a team that everyone's kind of picked as probably the NL Central favorite this year, just based off of the offensive attack that they have and the massive growth from Pete Armstrong, who shined again today. He had another home run, which gave him 10 on the year, and he presents as a problem. And for Met fans, it's another player who the Mets traded away, who's showing real promise on another team. This is kind of the Mets' curse in terms of not valuing prospects correctly and making ill-fated trades where they're dealing away potentially very talented prospects on what was a one-season rental in the Javi Baez situation in 2021. So that trade's really come back to bite the Mets, particularly when they have a real center field problem. Like, they don't have a legitimate center fielder as much as they're getting out of Tyrone Taylor and eventually Jose Siri if he ever comes back. They're in need of a player like PCA, and unfortunately they just don't have anything like that. So it's hurting the Mets in some ways. Did not hurt them in getting the Mets a win tonight, thankfully. good to see the Mets come through. This was, as I said, presented as a pitcher's duel for the majority of the game until it got to the eighth inning, and that's when the bats started to explode because the Cubs bullpen imploded, while the Mets bullpen was able to hold down the fort and get the win for them. So this was another Griffin Canning masterpiece. For it cannot be said enough how much of a shock out of nowhere Griffin Canning has been in Major League Baseball. No one expected this to happen. I don't think even the most optimistic projections had Canning as anything more than a number 5 starter. He is presented now as one of the best pitchers in baseball. This was 1 run, 2 base hits allowed against, once again, the best offense in baseball. Like, there is very little debate in terms of the fact that how good the Cubs have been this year with just all those bats I mentioned before, not to mention guys like Carson Kelly, who's having a great year, Dansby Swanson, a very, very deep lineup, one that could really give you problems, which is what happened in the Saturday game against Tyler McGill. And Canning just continues to effortlessly master his way through these performances. He's not going particularly deep in these games. He's going 5 or 6 innings, but that's really all the Mets really need him to get through. And he's so efficient in the way that he works and economical in his pitch count and keeps it together just for the most part. We haven't seen a meltdown performance from him yet, and that's been very encouraging. The fact that all of last season was meltdown performances from Canning. His blossoming into this legitimate starting pitching force that's focusing primarily on using his slider as his pitch, not using the fastball as much. Fastball's being used more as a setup pitch, and he's not trying to punch people out with it. But as was mentioned by Joe Girardi in the commentary today for today's game, the way that he works the slider and the fastball, and he gets so much drop on that slider, it's incredible to see him perform it, because it really is very difficult for hitters to react to it, because he just combines it with this high fastball that's out of the strike zone, and combines it with this low slider that he's been very good in terms of keeping from being a hanging pitch, and the way that he has been pitching so smart, it's just been a night and day season from compared to last season for Canning, and he has been fantastic across the board. Really great acquisition by the Mets that nobody saw coming as that he could be anything more than a guy who might be getting a spot start and every now and then, and it's not really an over-exaggeration to say that he is their best pitcher right now. Kodai Senga might have the lower ERA right now, but I trust Canning more than I trust Senga. That's really saying something, because Senga's also been terrific, obviously, with the ERA leader this year. But it's been shocking. Really amazing to see how far Canning has come, to the point that he looks like a master out there, and that's a little hyperbolic maybe, but because we're not even halfway through the season so far. But for a first quarter performance right now, I'll give my grade for him right now. That's a A+. He has done everything that they've asked him to do, and he's done it with aplomb. A really sensational pitcher. I'm so impressed by Griffin Canning. So Canning would come out and would be replaced by Reed Garrett. Reed Garrett would unfortunately give up the tying run for the Chicago Cubs in the 7th inning, and so I don't know if it was audible or not in the recording, but I was interrupted by my cat. She was not having me to any kind of podcast recording tonight. She was not having it. So going back to what I was saying before, the Mets would take the lead in the eighth inning, thanks to Francisco Lindor. Of course, Lindor coming through again in a huge spot, popping a home run to take the lead. Mark Vientos would follow with an RBI single, which would back up his solo home run from earlier in the game. And then Brandon Nimmo put it completely out of reach with a 2-run shot later that inning. They jumped all over the Chicago reliever, Trevor Hodge, and that was exactly what the Mets needed, really, at that point. This was, once again, a complete win on the part of not just the Mets offense, but also the starting pitching, which, again, was terrific, and then bullpen, which, other than the Reed Garrett miscue, was, again, top-notch, and Garrett would get out of trouble through that, make sure it wasn't a bigger inning. And Griffin Canning was also pretty good at doing that as well, coming through in situations where he had runners on base. He did not let them get the better of him, and it was just a complete win, a really definitive statement from the New York Mets, who looked absolutely terrific in this one. Really, really great win. And going into a series against the cellar-dwelling Pittsburgh Pirates, it's good, because especially because the Mets are going to have to take on Pirates phenom Paul Skeens in one of these games. So we're looking forward to the Mets potentially topping one of the best pitchers in baseball in Skeens. And it's going to be fun to watch. I'm really excited. I'm unfortunately not going to be around, I realized, for the Subway Series. I'm going on vacation at the end of this week, so I'm going to miss all of that. So I'm not going to be watching any of those games live, most likely, unless we happen to be somewhere where the game is playing. And I don't know if that's a possibility or not, but we'll see. And I'm going to see if, depending on like the internet situation, whether or not I can possibly record while I'm there, depending on whether or not I'm busy or not. Depends on a lot of things, really. But I'm really looking forward to the Subway Series later this week. In the Bronx, it's going to be electric, I'm sure. The highlights of that, which again I'm going to be forced to watch the highlights in order to get the full impact of what's going on. But I'm hoping the Mets continue to make statements throughout this week with hopefully a series win against the Pittsburgh Pirates, and then taking on our rivals, the New York Yankees. It's going to be a huge series for Juan Soto, who has looked really great coming into this series against the Chicago Cubs. He popped a pair of home runs in the first game, was pretty quiet in games 2 and 3, unfortunately. So here's hoping that he can get his thing back going in the right direction and continue his hot hitting in the month of May when he takes on his former team, because in the Bronx at Yankee Stadium, Yankee fans are going to make it very clear that they are going to boo the absolute shit out of Juan Soto. And Soto, I think if there's one thing we've learned about Soto likes to make statements, and he's going to be looking to pop home runs over the fences as much as possible and win games in order to really shut up the New York Yankees fans. So I'm looking forward to it. And if you're a Met fan, you're going to be glued to your TV. If you're in this country, if not, then it's going to be a little bit harder for you. But I can't wait. It's going to be, I'm sure, a great series. Hopefully, the Mets are able to take on that New York Yankees team, which is obviously throwing a red hot Aaron Judge at them, and a lot of other hitters. But we'll see if the Mets have the pitching advantage here and the perhaps offensive advantage. Other than Aaron Judge, Judge really makes that team go. But the Mets have a lot of different weapons that they've shown. They have a very deep team. I'm really looking forward to seeing how this team progresses and continues their fight and their challenges and continues to defy the expectations, because this entire first quarter of the season has been defying expectations. And I'm going to go into more of my first quarter grades for the New York Mets right after this. I'm going to take a quick break. Okay, coming back, the Mets just won their 26th game of the season, putting their record now 26-15. They are 11 games over 500. That was the 41st game of the season, so we are officially at the quarter mark of the year, and that means we get to grade what the Mets have been doing thus far for 2025. And obviously, with a record like 26-15, things are going really well for the Mets, and they're in first place. They're in a position that I think very few people thought it was going to play out in this case. A lot of people thought maybe second or third was a logical location for the Mets, given the team, their offensive depth, but with the pitching question marks that they had at the beginning of the season, it was fair to say that not a lot of people were really expecting the Mets to do really that much, and if they were going to do anything, it was going to have to be probably on the backs of their stars like Juan Soto and Francisco Lindor. Pete Alonso was, after a tough season, coming into a year where he had to really produce and really start to look like a player who was worthy of the paycheck that he was trying to get. And what we have seen thus far is kind of a reversal of expectations. Juan Soto got off to a slow start, and let's start with Soto, which was Soto's April numbers have never been really great. He's a slow starter for the most part. Not like Francisco Lindor slow, but he is a guy who generally does not really hit his offensive peak until midway through the year. So around like June, July, August, that's usually where Soto really breaks out, and you see the numbers start to explode with his type of play, which is primarily predicated on him, driving the ball for extra base hits, doubles, home runs. And we've seen that to a degree. He has 8 home runs on the season, but 5 of those have come in the month of May. So his April was not the best. He looked a little unsure of himself in terms of his plate discipline was obviously terrific, and there was never going to be any problems with Soto drawing walks. It was just a matter of him actually trying to produce base hits, and in some ways he was a little too conservative with his approach. Soto's approach is always going to be try to get on base, whether it's through a walk or a base hit. He's just trying to get on base, and usually his primary method of getting on base is draw the walk. His numbers to date, 8 home runs, 19 RBIs, tell a story, and the story is he's having trouble driving in runners in scoring position, and his primary method of scoring this year has been him homering, a lot of solo shots, a lot of two-run home runs, but nothing really that you've seen him do with runners in scoring position. He's been having a lot of trouble with that. And again, Soto, he's gotten off to a slow start. It is traditional for him to really start to get to prime Soto later in the year. So I'm not going to put too much on it, other than it's a little disappointing to see this, obviously massively expensive player, but also terrific player. He is unquestionably one of the top 5 best players in baseball. And I put up a post not that long ago about Met fans really needing to kind of control themselves when it comes to their expectations probably getting ahead of them in terms of, wow, we thought he was going to just dominate immediately. And the realization is that whether you're Francisco Lindor, Carlos Beltran, whoever, you're going to get into slow starts. I remember Mike Piazza also getting off to a slow start when he first came over to the Mets. And these are just things that kind of happen. There is an adaptation period. You have to get used to your new surroundings. Soto's had a lot of new surroundings. This is his 4th team in 4 years now, and so you got to get used to what you're playing. Now, even though he has a level of familiarity with Citi Field and New York Mets and New York Mets fans, playing for a new team is a completely different animal. He has to find his comfort zone. He has to get used to playing with new players, new teammates, and all these things, and get used to their traditions and everything that they're doing. And it's been an adjustment period. Unquestionably, he is not fully comfortable. He is not fully integrated into what he's doing. When it happens, and it will happen, we're going to see Soto completely take off. And I can't wait for it to happen. At this point in the season, I got to put him at a B, because even though he has probably underperformed based on the unrealistic expectations that his contract was going to demand, he's still producing at a great rate. I still feel he's doing what he's been told to do and asked to do, but he's got to do a little bit more, obviously, as the season goes by, and he will. I have no questions, or I have no real qualms about that happening. Let's talk about Pete Alonso. So as I mentioned before, Alonso was coming into a year. It was a make or break year. It was a you got to cash in type year. He is cashing in right now to the point that if he doesn't, if the Mets, if he turns in the season that is looking like he's going to turn in, the Mets are going to actually look like idiots really for not extending Alonso further. And the Mets were totally their space in order to kind of set the expectation of what Alonso's contract was going to be. And he could demand, massive money, a lot of years, all that stuff he was never going to get. The Mets were never going to offer to him, and none of the other Major League Baseball teams were going to offer him what he wanted either. And that was just that is the toll of playing a bad season. He had a really underperforming year in 2024 and paid for it. In this case, literally paid for it. He paid millions and millions of dollars for his bad performance in a free agent year. And what has occurred is what I really hoped would happen, which was that Alonso was going to go on a revenge tour, and he was going to show everybody how good he really is and how good he can be under pressure. And he completely changed his approach. He started to drive the ball the other way. He started to drive the ball to dead center, right field. That's what people were clamoring for Alonso to do forever. He has finally kind of bought into that approach, which that benefited him greatly in 2019 when he first debuted and had that incredible season. It looks like he's heading towards a similar type of season. And to the point, actually, that Gary Cohen made today on today's broadcast of the Met Cub game, he is performing at a career rate. Like, we've never seen Alonso produce like he is producing right now. He has, as of the last few games, started to scuffle a little bit. We haven't seen Alonso really start to break out the bat as he was in April, where he was a very well-deserved National League Player of the Month, driving in runs, hitting doubles. He is still currently, I believe, the lead leaguer in doubles and RBIs with 9 home runs. He's batting very well over 300. He has an on-base percentage of at the highest rate of his career, slugging percentage, OPS. All of these are at career bests for Alonso at this point in the season. And what we're getting now is Alonso really fully realized into what he can actually do. This is Alonso that we've been looking for a long time, and him producing in the 3-hole with Francisco Lindor, who I'm going to talk about in a second, and Juan Soto in front of him. He's got two guys who are very good at getting on base and getting themselves into scoring position. And with Alonso swinging the bat like he has been, it's led to a ton of RBI situations and possibilities for him, and he's been cashing in like crazy. It has been the Pete Alonso show, not the Juan Soto show, not even the Francisco Lindor show. It has been the Pete Alonso show, and he is cashing in. He's going to make bank if he opts out and goes into free agency after the season. It's going to be a massive raise for Alonso, because people are going to look at him and say, okay, yeah, he figured it out. He knows what he has to be doing now. Even though he's over 30, his approach, him adapting like he has been, is exactly what he needed. And we are really starting to see the results. It's been absolutely terrific. Next, So the grade for Alonso is obviously going to be A+. I could not expect anything more from him in terms of his offensive performance, but also how well he's been performing defensively. He's looked really good. A lot of diving saves at first base. Obviously, the pick at first is what he was always known for, and just being a very steady hand at first. So he's kind of improved upon his defense as well. It's been really encouraging to see that Alonso, even at his age, still has the ability to improve, not just offensively, but defensively, and is doing a lot of things that we never saw him do. And he's also a terrific teammate. There's nothing I could ask for more from Pete Alonso, so that's going to be a full A+ for Alonso. Next, Francisco Lindor, A. Not a lot to say in terms of this. He's kind of defied the expectation in terms of slow starts, because remember, Lindor got off to such a horrendous start last season, but has really found himself in a leadoff hole. He's really starting to explode. He looks like the Lindor that we've seen for 2024 from like June 1st to the end of the year, which was just Lindor. Yeah, they would just put the bat in his hands and just expect magic to happen, and it very frequently did. Lindor was the catalyst for that team, runner-up in MVP voting for a very good reason. He just did everything for them last year. He was not just a power like a power bat, but also a guy who came through in clutch situations. He was a defensive wizard at short. Continues to get robbed of Gold Gloves and Gold Glove nominations, but he's still just a general out there. He continues to do everything. He is the lifeblood, the focus, captain in everything but an official C on his chest. He is the absolute leader of that team. They are all bought into him. He has the command of not just his teammates and ownership in the front office, but also Met fans who are singing his praises very literally whenever he comes to bat. It's been tremendous to see for people who thought a lot of Lindor, and his arrival kind of mirrors Soto's arrival this year, where he got off to a tricky start, and it was not always smooth sailing with Lindor, and there was these bumpy situations with him that in that first year, 2021, easy to forget now, but they weren't really sure if it was going to really work out with Lindor for a period, because it looked like his numbers were slipping to the point that it looked like the Mets may have overpaid, or the Mets were going to maybe have gotten the raw deal in the trade that sent Lindor to New York in the first place. But those fears have gone completely unfounded. Lindor is the lifeblood and the heart and soul of this Met team. An incredible player, not just on the field but off the field. He is a great humanitarian and does so many things for the Met community, and really raising the Met profile as an ambassador to all of Major League Baseball. Just a terrific human being, a great player, and I can't wait to see more from Lindor, who is going to, I think, have another terrific season and will be a huge catalyst for the Mets' success this season and for future seasons. So we talked about the Mets stars here. Let's talk about the other players on this team, starting with the catching situation, which has been Luis Torrens, but most recently Francisco Alvarez. The numbers have been terrific from both men. Torrens, bit of a surprise how well he has produced offensively, and me and my brother remember having this discussion earlier in the year that Torrens was a player that maybe was even good enough to be a starting caliber player for years to come. If the Mets really wanted to play that role, maybe even go with Francisco Alvarez as a DH possibility. But truthfully, both men have also been excellent defensively. And Alvarez's improvements with throwing out runners have been great to see. As great to see as it has been to see Torrens succeeding offensively. He had an RBI triple in the game today. Had to leave because of an unfortunate injury midway through the game. But Torrens has been an Ironman out there for them. He has done. He took on a lot of offensive responsibility early in the year, and it's paid off for the Mets. They were able to lean on him and get good production from him while they were waiting for Alvarez to return. Alvarez, since he's returned, has looked great. He hasn't really been hitting for a lot of power necessarily. We've been seeing his approach kind of mirror Alonso in terms of what we've seen him do, which is a lot of attacking the ball and going the opposite field, and it's benefiting him a lot because he's not getting into this pull heavy mode. The consequence of it is that he's not really hitting for a ton of power, but the benefit of it is that he's getting on base. He's driving in runs. He's coming through in a lot of clutch situations, and that approach seems to have really benefited him. I'll give the catching position a solid B for the. I'll adjust that to a B plus. I'll say that I've been really impressed with what I've seen from both Alvarez and Torrens, and that is one of the best catching tandems in all of Major League Baseball, in my opinion. Those two are able to seamlessly switch and provide great production from both men. It's been really, really encouraging to see how good they are together, and in a lot of ways, they're opposite, but also very similar in terms of their approaches and their defensive ability. So the Mets being able to kind of put either men into the catching hole and get good production out of both of them Really great. Really, really, really great for the Mets. Third base, Mark Vientos. This has been troublesome. He is not really producing at the level that a lot of people thought he was. I'll give him my grade right now, and it's a D. And I feel bad about giving Vientos that, but honestly, he hasn't really shown that a lot to really convince me that it's a better that he's been doing better. This was an encouraging game for me for my feelings on Vientos, who has been, I think, probably the most disappointing member of the Mets thus far. He now today hit his fifth home run of the season, drove in a pair, so he's up to 17 RBIs. He's batting. His approach is not been good, and I'm encouraged by what I saw today, but his his inconsistencies are starting to look more like Vientos 2023 rather than Vientos 2024. And Vientos 2023 was striking out a lot. He was, had the power, bad of course, but was not really, didn't really have an opportunity to show it too much because he was constantly not coming through in situations that they needed him to. And because of that, because they're batting him in the middle of the lineup, he's kind of one of the biggest problems in terms of having guys, in terms of the Mets' issue, which has been leaving men on base in scoring position. Vientos is one of the main culprits for that. A lot of the blame will go to Juan Soto, but Vientos is equally, I think, responsible because you can't be batting fifth and hitting his batting average being as low as it is, his OPS being as bad as it is. He's just not driving in runners. I mean, only 17 RBIs at this point in the season for your number 5 hitter who's been switching between like 4, 5, and 6. This is the guy who's in the middle of the lineup. You have to expect him to produce, and he's just not been producing. So I'm hoping to see him continue to speed up his production. I'll give him I'll amend that. I'll give him a C- because of the home run and the RBI single today. That was really good to see from him. But he's obviously been a very disappointing member of the Met roster. But I think he has it in him to improve. His approach just sucks. I'll be very judgmental about that. He has not looked good, and because he has not been the player that they need him to be, it's been a real problem. They really need Vientos to wake up and start to look like Vientos of 2024 again, because if they do, having him in the middle of that lineup with Lindor, Alonso, and Soto, if you have Vientos that more resembles him from last season, it gives the Mets an incredible weapon. It makes their lineup, which is already very deep and scary, even deeper and scarier. And here's hoping that Vientos is on his way to figuring out what has been bedeviling him so much early in the season. We'll go next into second base. The second base position has been primarily held down by Luis Angel Acuna. And Acuna, I'm going to give him a B- because as good as Acuna has been, and Acuna has been really good. Let's not take anything away from from Acuna's performance thus far this season. He very, very deservingly won National League Rookie of the Year, National League Rookie of the Month for the month of April. Batting average was about 300 for the first month of the season. His approaches look very professional. He's mature. That's the thing that Met commentators, and not just Met commentators, but also really all MLB commentators have been noting with Acuna, is that his approach, despite his age, is very professional and mature. He has a level of experience that should necessitate his approach being far less professional and more immature. He should be striking out more. He should be looking to pull the ball more. All these things that he's just not doing. When he gets into trouble, he really tries to go the other way. It's something that works for him a lot. Despite him having no home runs this year, I think of him as an actual power threat because the ball really does jump off his bat. When he's able to really uncork one and really drive the ball, you can see it really explode off his bat. He has great bat speed, and he's just smart, and I think him at the second base position is just so natural and perfect. In complement with Lindor, who is I think a great mentor to Acuna. It's a really good tandem, and Acuna continues to surprise a lot of people. Not just the fact that he's obviously very fast, having that kind of running speed on your side, and having a base stealing threat like Acuna is, it gives the Mets a dimension that they don't really have other than Acuna. Acuna is really the primary base stealer on that team, other than I guess Starling Marte. But Acuna, just the way that he runs the bases and he's able to take the other base, or just the way he just speeds around and is able to be aggressive like that. It provides the Mets a great weapon. He's been really, really good for them, and I'm giving him B minus because even though I really want to give him a B, the B minus is really just in terms of his level of experience. I'm trying to give him a little bit more to grow on, and I'm hoping to see more of it continue with him because he's starting to slump a little bit. But even though he's slumping, I think he's doing a lot of really good things for the team. The final player I'm going to grade for the Mets offense is going to be Brandon Nimmo, and Brandon Nimmo I'm going to give a C plus to. Nimmo's been a big RBI threat for the team. A big part of that was his 9 RBI performance against the Nationals. He has 25 RBIs now on the season. He's, as a cleanup man, been really good for the team. He is not doing a ton other than hit home runs and drive in runners. And he's just kind of limited in terms of what he can do for the team right now. We're seeing like Nimmo in his 30s, and I'll change the C plus. Actually, I'll make that a B minus because he is doing a lot for this team from the cleanup hole. He's just not hitting really in any kind of consistent fashion. He's batting in the low 200s. And he's got to up that production. The most like jarring thing has been his on base percentage, which has been exceptionally low. He's under 300 on base percentage for Brandon Nimmo. It's not something I ever thought I would look at. Nimmo's really kind of changed his game and his approach up to the point that now he's not really an on base threat as much. He's really kind of changed it up, and now is looking to be more of a home run power threat, and it's surprising. I think I said jarring before, yeah, and it's I think the right description for it. I don't remember Nimmo looking like this, and he's looked. It's good that he's hitting for power, and he's really looking like a legitimate cleanup hitter is important, because with Soto batting second, you're kind of limiting your lineup power production lower in the lineup, where you have obviously, Alonso batting third, but then you have the inconsistent performances from Vientos, inconsistent performances from Nimmo, Alvarez not being around for half the season, and now not really looking like a power threat, and you're kind of limited. So Nimmo's been important for the team in terms of him kind of taking up the cleanup hole and changing up his game as much as he has. He's gone into much more of a free swinging mode. But I would hope he adjusts that as the season goes along, because he's just got to get on base more in terms of what he's doing. He's been great at driving in runners and hitting home runs, and he's provided an element that the Mets desperately needed in terms of the power, but him being a more complete player is going to be important. And part of it is I don't think he can really run that much anymore. His left field performance is kind of hit or miss. It's mostly miss. He's really regressed as a defender. They really need to put him at left field, and maybe he actually might be a future DH for this team, which is saying something because the Mets do not have a great defense. And if I was going to grade the Met defense right now, I'd say it's a C, and that feels generous because they are not great defensively. As good as Lindor can be, and Acuna has his moments at second, and Alonso has his moments at first, and the Mets catchers are really good defensively. They struggle defensively for the most part. They are not good. They're not an efficient defense. In terms of defensive run saves, they're in the bottom echelon. They're below average in pretty much every defensive category, except I think for errors and fielding percentage, where they're at least limiting their errors, I guess. But that's really it. And they do struggle, and they have a great defensive center fielder in Tyrone Taylor, but because he's not playing every day, they're not really getting the full benefit of Taylor in center field. So it's been really hit or miss for that that defense for the team, and Nimmo's been a big part of that. And obviously Soto is also not a good defensive right fielder, so you have two poor defensive players out there. And then at center field, you're splitting time with Jeff McNeil at center field and Taylor and Jose Zokar, and eventually Jose Siri will be back at some point. But until then, you're really there have been points this season where the Mets have been having Jeff McNeil in center field, Brandon Nimmo in left, and Juan Soto in right. That's not good. That's not like a great combination out there. And hopefully the Mets can either get Siri back, or they can get maybe a legitimate center fielder at some point. The Mets have not ruled out, I think, Luis Robert, but they've pretty much confirmed that they're not talking to him right now. And there's really no reason for them to really approach a trade for Robert, who's also not a terrific center fielder. But in order to get some better production, more consistent production at center field, it's something that they might want to explore later in the year. But for right now, they're obviously not in any kind of real rush to make that kind of trade. Let's move on to the pitching, and I'm not going to individually credit all the pitching because this video is already going pretty long, and I'm already losing my voice. So I'm just going to credit the entire Mets pitching staff as a A++++++. I already shouted out Griffin Canning earlier in this episode, what felt like a million years ago, but also Clay Holmes has been incredible. Kodai Senga, 1.16 ERA through 7 starts. That's pretty shocking and amazing. David Peterson and Tyler Miguel, who haven't pitched like great as of recently, their ERAs are still 3.1 and 3.05. That was the level that's how good they were going through their first 7 or 8 starts of the season. The Mets are ranked in the top 3 or top 1. They're either first or very near first in pretty much every pitching category. I think except for walks, where they are not good. They do walk more in their fair percentage, but strikeouts, ERA plus, strikeout per walks, obviously ERA, where they are the number 1 team in terms of limiting runs. They are incredible at limiting home runs. The entire starting pitching staff this year, Canning gave up a home run to Pete Crow Armstrong earlier in this game. It was only his 4th home run allowed the entire year. That puts him top on the team. That's insane. Everyone else, Clay Holmes, is allowed only 1 home run. Kodai Senga, same. 3 for McGill and 3 for Peterson. Those are numbers that I never thought we would ever see from the starting pitching staff. And I'm pretty sure I said it before, the MVP of this team has been the pitching lab, for the way that they have taken a pitching staff that was kind of pointed at and said, this is a bottom 5 pitching staff. I think that was the very generous assumption from a lot of people, which was that this looked like a pitching staff that was going to be beleaguered with giving up runs, base hits, home runs, walks. It didn't look like a unit that had the potential to take on any team like the millions and millions of dollars that the Los Angeles Dodgers gave to their starting pitchers, or to the Braves' vaunted pitching staff, or even the Phillies, who assembled a really good pitching staff themselves. It didn't feel like they had a unit that could take on any of those teams. We saw today that the Mets were able to just blitz the best the best offense in the league this year, with just peppering them with off-speed pitches, and a really good approach has made this team just elite. And it is shocking to see, because they haven't. It's not just been their starting pitching staff, which has been obviously terrific, but also their bullpen, which, other than Edwin Diaz getting into a couple of tough spots and Max Kranick getting into a couple of tough spots, they've been really good. Brian Stanek has also been kind of hit or miss lately, but Reed Garrett, who gave up a run today, has been pretty much flawless this season. He's been really great. Huascar Brazaban has got to be the MVP of that bullpen group. They've asked him to start games. They've asked him to pitch multiple innings in relief. They've asked him to close. They've asked him to do everything under the sun, and he has done everything that they've asked him to do, and done it with amazing success. And he has been an incredible weapon for them. Jose Budo has been really great. They've had some injury issues, unfortunately, with AJ Minter and Danny Young, but they haven't really blinked. And the fact that they've been able to get by that, they've brought up Genesis Cabrera, and Cabrera has looked pretty solid for them early on. They've called up Dediel Nunez, who's gotten into some trouble. There was definitely some rust with Nunez, clearly, in terms of his pitching, but he is another potential weapon out there that makes this bullpen group look really, really dangerous. And they have other options here. That's the scary thing, is that you have to figure at some point, and this is going to be where the Mets have like weapons out the ass right now. Like, at some point, they will eventually get Frankie Montas and Sean Manaea back, and both those guys were earmarked for starting rotation spots. But Sean Manaea was the definitive ace. Everyone thought he was going to be pitching opening day before he got hurt, and at some point, we don't know when, because the IL stint continues to get longer and longer. Eventually, that guy will be around again, and they will have him in the starting rotations. That means him, and eventually Montas also. With that means that one of the starting pitchers of the Mets, who again, this is the best starting pitching group in baseball this year, at some point they're going to have to move one of those guys probably to the bullpen. I would say probably Tyler McGill, because given McGill's history, we're already starting to look towards the rapid depression from McGill, where all of a sudden it looks like he can look incredible for the first half of the season, but then. For the first month of the season, but McGill, things can kind of turn quickly for McGill, so I would say probably McGill's the most likely candidate to go to the bullpen after he regresses, which seems likely given how poorly he's pitched these last couple of starts. But even him pitching poorly, it hasn't been that bad. Like we haven't had a real flame out game from any of the Mets starters really this year, and that says something. And part of it is that they've limited home runs as much as they have. You really have to make it count against the Mets pitching staff. That means you gotta hit home runs, which they are not allowing to happen. They are very, very specific in terms of the way that they pitch, and it is a real testament to. The pitching coach staff. Obviously, Jeremy Hefner deserves his roses. We should all give them to him. But I think just the Mets front office also for making the smart moves, making the smart acquisitions, and again making everyone look like idiots when we were all calling them out, including myself. I will gladly take the hit here and say I didn't think this pitching staff would be worth anything. And I'm so happy to have been proven wrong. They've been incredible, and we all kind of have to eat our words now, because I never thought that this unit, again, that looked like a absolute bottom five unit, even before probably the injuries, it did not look like a group that could possibly contend, and they are the best pitching staff in baseball. That is a shocking thing to say, and an incredible testament to how well the Mets did at just player acquisition and coaching these guys up. Because Griffin Canning is the greatest result of all of this. If they can make Griffin Canning, who was a bad pitcher last season, if they can turn this guy into a top 5 pitcher right now, Griffin Canning is one of the top 5 starters in baseball right now. That is crazy to say, but they've made Griffin Canning into a legitimate, like, ace caliber looking pitcher. If they can do that for him, they can do it for everybody. And I know a lot of pitchers are looking at the Mets and then looking at their pitch lab and looking at what they could possibly do for them. And it can be guys who are mega talented, other guys who are talented but are not getting the results with their own pitching stat, with their own pitching coaches and stuff. If the Mets can coach these guys up also, it's an incredible weapon for them that just keep plucking these pitchers relatively out of obscurity and just turning them into legitimate forces. The Griffin Canning Clay Holmes transformation from both those guys into top flight pitching arms, unbelievable. It has to go down as one of the greatest surprises and success stories in Met history. And even though we're only a quarter of the way through the season, I'm just floored by what I've seen so far. It's just been an incredible season. Overall, I gotta give the grade. It's gotta be an A+. I have to. That might seem like homerism, but I really am just shocked that we are at this point in the season and looking as good as we are. It's a great feeling. It's also scary because if you're a Met fan, you're not used to accomplishments, feeling this good, and you're kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop. And I'm sure there will be regression cases. I'm sure that we will have guys start to kind of fall back to form as the season progresses. And it's unlikely that some of these guys, we're not going to see Kodai Senga with a 1.1 whatever ERA for the entire season. So we got to ride this as long as we can, because eventually these things start to go back the other way. But for right now, I'm just cautiously optimistic, and not even cautiously. I'm just optimistic. I feel very confident in what this team is doing because I feel confident with the people who run it in charge, and that means Steve Cohen. That means David Stearns. I feel very confident in what we're doing here and what we are going to continue to do for the remainder of the season and for seasons to come. And we will see how everything goes by the second half of the season, the second quarter of the season, when we're at the halfway point at the All-Star break. We'll grade it all again, and we'll see how everything is played out over the next couple months. But I've been not just pleasantly surprised, I'm just flat out surprised by everything I've been seeing, and I can't wait to see more, and I can't wait to see the Mets continue to succeed and do so well, and just make all of us Met fans so proud in what we're seeing. It's an incredible feeling. I love it. Thank you for listening to Mike's Mets podcast. If you haven't already, please follow us on Spotify and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Leave a like and a comment. It helps so much. Finally, please follow our Twitter and Blue Sky pages. You can find us at Twitter at Mike's Mets Pod, all one word, and on Blue Sky at Mike's Mets Podcast.bsky.social. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day or evening, and let's go Mets.